What's up, guys? Prince Sports here. Uncut, raw, and unbiased sports talk. Check it out. Now, Shaquille O'Neal was talking about James Harden, right? In terms of winning championships. Now, Shaq is a guy that won 4 chips. So he got experience with winning championships. He know what it takes to win championships. You know, about being the alpha and having certain teammates around you, this, that, and the third. So he criticized James Harden by saying, you could be the best player in the world, but if you don't make sacrifice, you're not going to win championships. You can't just not get your teammates involved. Everybody has to touch the ball, or they're going to get out of rhythm. They're just going to stand there doing nothing. So basically, he's criticizing James Harden for holding on to the ball too long and saying that James Harden doesn't get enough teammates involved in order for him to win. Now, there's some truth to this, but there's also some non-truth to it, because you got to put it in context. You got to be objective about it, okay? Now, James Harden did have championship contending teams around him. Okay, the Rockets weren't considered a championship contender for no reason. All right, so even when they move the ball around and a lot of guys get touches, there's only so much they could do if their talent is not greater than the next team's talent. Now, they often ran into the Golden State Warriors when the Golden State Warriors were at their peak. Super team with Kevin Durant. Not that I'm giving them an excuse, because you're still accountable for what takes place on the basketball court. But you have to put it in context, okay? They weren't able to push that team to 7 games without one of their best players, which was Chris Paul at the same time. And you're going to need that against a team like the Golden State Warriors. So there's only so much you could do without a team like that. And they did move the ball, okay? They shot the ball about, from the 3-point land about, 20 plus times, all right? So it wasn't just all James Harden shooting that 3 ball. It was a bunch of the teammates doing the same thing. So there's some truth to that. The sacrifice part is, Shaq is 100% right about that. You have to sacrifice and trust your teammates at some point. All great champions have done that. Rather it was Michael Jordan, rather it was Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, all great basketball players, they trust certain teammates to a certain extent. That's why you have to build the right team around the superstar, team that a guy could trust. Jordan learned to trust, the John Paxtons, B.J. Armstrongs, this, that, and the third. Kobe learned to trust, Lamar Odoms and, his whole teammate, Yeah, he been trusting Derek Fisher. So you have to put people around them that they could trust. Those are guys that Kobe trusted. And I think James Harden having so much different rosters on his Houston Rockets team that it's hard for him to trust. And if you look at it, that Houston Rockets team, they trade like a roster every single season. They went from Dwight Howard in that roster to Chris Paul in that roster, to Russell Westbrook in that roster. So it's always constantly been changing. Even a lot of the role plays been changing. Pat Bev was on the Houston Rockets at one point. So they kept going. They kept trading people from left to right. And every single season, they came back with a different roster and a different second option, which was kind of weird. Last year's second option was Russell Westbrook. This year, it's John Wall, assuming if James Harden continues and wants to stay. So before that, Chris Paul. Before that, Dwight Howard. And this constantly keeps changing. But in order for James Harden to win the championship, some of the onus is on him. It's not just about his teammates. You have to bring some of your best game to the table too. You can't disappear. He has too much examples of him disappearing in the fourth quarter. Okay, that's something he has to correct. That's something he has to overcome. There are sometimes he gets lackadaisical, and you know what I'm saying? And he just disappears sometimes. It is what it is. And if you want, you could look at his stats in clutch final 5 minutes of certain games when he goes, takes a lot of shots and clank, 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 This happened, but at least I give him credit for taking shots. because there's some guys that don't even do it. You know, they're just froze out. But other than that, he needs to do some correction of himself as a leader and a franchise player. When you're the alpha, you get held for a lot of responsibility. Win or lose, a lot of the blame is on you. And a lot of the winning, you get credit for it. That's just how the game goes, you know. You could call it a fair system or unfair system, but that's just how the game of basketball goes, man. Prince Sports out. Peace.